Good morning, everybody. I'm back on the air. That was short. So now, big news going around in the NFL that has been going around the league this week is Tom Brady is going to be a free agent. We know that. And there are talks as will he be back in New England? And we aren't so certain on that. That is not a given. That is not a guarantee by any means whatsoever. So we're just going to talk about free agent quarterbacks and possible destinations for Tom Brady since, again, ever since the Patriots lost to the Titans, for the first time ever, there's talk of will Brady play elsewhere and will he leave New England? Like all the other greats under the Belichick system, either retired early like Gronk or played elsewhere. And the question is Brady finally the same thing? And what is going to happen? Like, will Brady leave or not? I think that will be one of the biggest stories in the NFL. Again, I just talked about the Washington Redskins and what they might do with the second pick. I think this, and question will be answered about 6 weeks beforehand, certainly a month beforehand, and this will be a talked about story over the next few weeks. Since again, we are only just a few weeks away from NFL free agency. We are wondering what is going to happen with Tom Brady and his status. And again, there are multiple free agent quarterbacks around trying to ask and answer the same question. So with that, let's go through the free agent list of quarterbacks. You have Drew Brees in New Orleans. I think he's committed to going back to New Orleans, so that's off the table. Philip Rivers and LA Chargers. The Chargers are actually moving on from Philip Rivers. I think he moved down to Florida, so the question is, does Philip Rivers somehow play in Tampa? Does he go to Jacksonville? Does he go to Miami and kind of be the bridge quarterback for a year until we just talked about Tua? If they somehow draft Tua, until Tua is ready to come back. I don't know, maybe. So moving to Florida, he's moving on from Los Angeles. Is he going to retire? He could retire. So again, I think he's like, maybe he signs with the Titans. I don't know. Maybe he plays somewhere reasonably close to Florida since, again, he just moved away from Southern California. Right, so does Brady go to the Chargers? I've heard some talks of that. They're moving into that new stadium for this team that has struggled to sell tickets. They've played in a soccer stadium, literally, for the last 3 years. They almost no fan base. The fan base they did have was in San Diego. People in LA do not care about the Chargers. They don't even care terribly much about the Rams, a team that went to and almost won a Super Bowl, that has been under the influence of Sean McVay for the last 3 years. The Rams are struggling to draw. The Chargers are even less of a big deal. Like, they're moving to that new stadium in LA. Question is this a Rams town or a Chargers town? I think Brady, just with that name alone and being their quarterback, I think for a couple of years will help the Chargers draw, right? So could he go to LA? I've heard of talks of that. That job is open. I ultimately think it's going to be, very well could be Tua if the Dolphins pass on him, which I want to look at the order again to make sure I'm correct. So it's Dolphins then Chargers. So again, he may not be available. So again, maybe Brady goes to LA before even they can even think about Tua and they go for a quarterback another year. I think that's probably the most likely non-Patriots destination. Then you have Jameis Winston in Tampa Bay. He had some spectacular games, but he also had games where he threw 3 or 4 interceptions. He threw 30 interceptions, but he threw for 5,000 yards. He was sacked a huge amount, yet there's a terrible defense. Again, how do you expect to win if you're losing field position and you're turning the ball over and you don't have a defense around you? It's hard. But again, how many more opportunities are going to give Jameis Winston? I think year 2 is when he peaked, when we really thought, hey, this team almost went to the playoffs in 2016. They're on the rise. They never took that step forward. They missed the playoffs all 5 years that he has been in Tampa Bay. This has not worked out. What are you going to do with Jameis Winston? I mean, you've given him 5 years. What's going to happen? What are you going to do? Right? You're coached under Bruce Arians, the quarterback whisperer. How do you cut down on the turnovers, right? How much money are you going to pay him? That's a lot to answer. So again, you talk about LA Chargers being open, maybe Jameis somehow goes to the LA Chargers, right? Or something like that. I don't know. But Tampa, probably not. I don't think Brady wants to play in Tampa. I don't know if they're good enough. I mean, you have to compete with Drew Brees and the Saints right there. Obviously, you go to the LA Chargers, you're in the same division as the defending Super Bowl champion in the Kansas City Chiefs. Dak Prescott with the Cowboys, again, being a free agent, he's not going to get to that level. I mean, we talked about his contract extension. Jerry Jones is not going to let him get him there. They might franchise tag him. Of course, probably not. I think they probably just go ahead and re-sign him now, really, within the coming weeks. I think he gets re-signed. And they lock him up long term. I mean, now is the time. And the numbers last year, as he went for almost 5,000 yards. Had the best year of his career offensively. So that's the question you ask yourself. Are you ready to bring him? How much money are you going to pay him? He's not going to Dallas. Here's a good, interesting question. You have between Tannehill and Mariota. Mariota's gone, obviously. Where he's going, I don't know. He'll probably be a backup somewhere. Maybe some team will take a chance on him and let him start. I don't know. But Tannehill, put together, was a huge reason why they went to the playoffs. I mean, you talk about what happened with Derrick Henry. And then Ryan Tannehill comes out, leads them to the playoffs, the conference championship game. Took over in week 6, led the league, I think, in yards per attempt. You're going to have to spend the money to keep Henry and Tannehill. You need both of them. Obviously, they were the biggest reason why the offense completely changed. Went from one of the worst offenses in the league to then one of the best. It's going to take a lot of money to keep them. But could you see Brady in Nashville? And here's the thing. Tannehill beat Brady. Well, Tannehill did not perform very well in the playoffs. Down the stretch, you would much rather have Ryan Tannehill than Tom Brady. I mean, Ryan Tannehill was a much better player down the stretch than what we saw of Tom Brady. So again, do you want Tannehill long term, or do you want Brady short term? And do you want the better player? Since Tannehill, well, that has not been the case the last 7 years. Prior to this last year, Tannehill was the better player, especially in the second half. And certainly down the stretch. I mean, who would you rather have? So again, I don't think he's going to Tennessee. So we talk about the options. You might have heard talks of Chicago. I mean, we don't know where Brady's going. Oakland, Vegas now, the Vegas Raiders. So you've heard of a lot of talks of Brady on the move. So that's an interesting question. What I think is most likely to happen, I think he signs a 2-year deal, one year, and I think more likely, or less likely, maybe a 2-year deal, so a 1 or 2 year deal to go back to New England. I think that's where he's going back to. I think that's the most likely thing of all. Since again, if you're some other franchise, do you really want to? Since again, I think he wants to go to a contender, a team that can win now. I think the Chargers may be that team, possibly. Tennessee is, but again, how good is Brady? I think for the first time we saw a decline in play. I mean, was it a one-time thing? Was it down the stretch? Was it lack of support? I don't know. But for the first time in years, we're starting to question the future of the Patriots. I think we're starting to really think about their future now. And okay, we really know this is not going to last much longer. Brady's going to be 43 next year. It's not like they went to another Super Bowl. Things are starting to change now. So the most likely thing, what I think is going to happen, I ultimately think he goes back to New England. I think that's the safest bet. I think that's the most likely bet. But as we said, this is the reason why we're talking about this. It is not a given that he will be a Patriot next year at all. There is no given whatsoever. So I just say I think there's a 60-40. He goes back to New England. And then you obviously look at the rest of the options. So again, this quarterback free agency class will be very interesting to see what happens in free agency, where these quarterbacks go, and how much changes are. We know Rivers is out in L.A. Just Jameis out. What do you do? I mean, that's a dilemma. And then obviously Tennessee, you're going to have to spend to keep Tannehill. And I think they will. since obviously was last year a fluke for the Titans, I don't know. Who knows? But again, so what if Brady were to leave the Patriots? I think that would be very interesting. I think that'll be kind of a shock for us, since this would be the first time since 2000 and really since the 1999 season that Brady was not in the Patriots organization. But this is a 43-year-old quarterback. How is this going to work? I don't know what's going to happen. I do not know. But again, this is something to definitely monitor over the next couple of weeks. And again, when free agency starts, this could be something interesting to talk about. Since remember, Peyton Manning, we thought in the summer of 2011 he would be a lifetime Colt. That all changed when he had that neck injury and it was time to take Andrew Luck. We thought Luck would be a lifetime Colt. He was, but he retired. Right, so you had that happening. Philip Rivers appears will not be a lifetime Charger. Appears he'll play elsewhere for a year or two. Cam Newton, we thought he'd be moving on from Carolina. That does not seem as likely now. So you have all those scenarios. And by the way, Eli Manning retired as a Giant. He has officially retired. He will not play again. So that's what happened there. So again, you think about all the great quarterbacks. Even Brett Favre moved on from Green Bay. I mean, he was in Atlanta to begin with, but he's basically a lifetime Packer. Basically, he played longer than what the Packers wanted to have. Went to New York and then went to Minnesota for 2 years, retired, and clearly did not go out in a very good way. So Brett Favre moved on. Joe Montana moved on to Kansas City. So the list goes on and on, right? So now, that's the thing. So if you're the Patriots, do you draft a quarterback? Maybe you think about getting a quarterback if they're available. I don't know. Is Jarrett Stidham somehow ready to go? I don't know. But again, they started thinking about this 6 years ago, before they knew that they'd win 3 Super Bowls and go to make 4 Super Bowl appearances, and somehow continue the dynasty in 2014 when they thought Jimmy G was the future. He was not. But this time, Brady's not in his late 30s anymore. He's getting somewhat close to his mid-40s already. So it is seriously time to think about your future and your quarterback. So this year, what the Patriots need to do is they need to draft a quarterback. Because again, yes, they need to draft a quarterback. And that's what I think they will likely do. I don't know if they'll do it or not. But also, here's another question. If Brady comes back to the Patriots, are the Jets, who got hot in the second half, are not really the Jets, the Bills? Are the Bills a serious threat to the Patriots? I think last year, until the Patriots won Week 16, it looked like that the Bills were a threat. And I think the Bills will be a threat this year. So I think for the first time in many years, the Patriots will not be unanimous picks to win the AFC East. So I think the Patriots are no longer the best team in the AFC anymore. That title is going to the Baltimore Ravens. That is starting to now change. So I'm interested to see what happens over the next couple of weeks. I really are. I mean, sometime, right around the time March Madness starts, it'll be interesting to talk about where Brady ends up. And again, so the question is, as I get ready to exit the show, listeners, you can write this in the comment section. Where do you think Brady's going? I'm going to say this. I think he's going back to New England, but we don't know yet. But we will find out in the coming weeks. So thank you, everybody, for listening, and we will see you next time.